All righty, kids and kidlets. Oh, recording. Hello, and welcome to I Don't Normally Watch That here on JLJ Media. And I am the JLJ of JLJs of JLJs. I am. All righty, kids and kidlets. Shut up, JLJ. Oh, buddy, we're here. So we'll be in the chat room, so you guys can come in if you want to come in. And we're talking DC right now because I have some questions for them. I bothered my brother who's a fan, and I bothered him, so I'm going to bother my friends instead. On camera. Why not? Plus, these two have never been together with me on a show. I've done shows with them separately and apart. And the first guy I've known this year will be 7 years. I have known him. Yes, I'm very fortunate. Yes, and we do the GH. The number one show on this network is what we do every week. The GH Me Spotlight and Recap. We do. You like us for some reason. You really like us. Frank Moran.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. And the guy he's to the left of me, I guess. We know each other several years, a little over 2 years, and we do all kinds of stuff together also. And you know him as Flobo Boyce.
I got an email saying three-way, and I was like, I'm definitely in. Don't even give me context. That's
You're right, three-way. That was the subject of the email. They both answered. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm lucky.
Sign me up.
Absolutely.
You both said it. You answered fast too.
Flobo, I do have one question before we break into everything for James. Is that it was always new content every day.
Yeah.
Now I've been told it's new content every week.
It's the opposite. So it was new content, and then Ryan Nielsen said new content every week. Then Christian Black said new content every week. With the pandemic, it went daily, but the brand had already been cemented. So I would still say every week, even though it's dang near every day.
All right. I don't want to go like 7 days before I get fresh Flobo content.
Yeah, because the lines are out the door, right? We need more.
Either way, content's happening. It's coming out of the Flobito machine. It is. Welcome to the show, you guys, and everybody. This show is out there. Of course, we have several episodes. It's a rebooted show that I brought back to actually Mike's acclaim. Flobo was on a previous episode. He watched Days of Our Lives. He watched
Trippy.
Marlena's Possession. Exorcism. You watched that. And that was
first time watching soap operas in 22 years. Apparently, the Reddit at Days of Our Lives liked the fact that I went on this journey as well. It was crazy.
Yes, and we have some good numbers happening because of that video. Also, I talked wrestling with him. I watched wrestling for the first time in like 22 years. That's out there, and everybody was just hot. That's all I care. Everybody was just hot.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
I like I said on the show, I was wet the whole time. And then also, I have other shows I talk about all the time that I don't watch normally. I have a Single All the Way and the 20-somethings Austin. I did a bunch of them. So you go check those out. They are video only. So he has a playlist here on JLJ Media. So subscribe there and you can see it. Do it. Also, these two are, and I yell at my fans all the time. And these two both are my audio dramas. They have a bunch of audio dramas. I'm going to tell you which ones. Just watch them all, listen to them all, and you can hear their voices on any of them. All right, that's it. Now we're going into the show. To get in there. So, gentlemen, I want to show you something first. Everybody see me first. So, this is actually from my childhood that I found at my mother's house the other day because I was in a fire years ago and I lost everything in my childhood. So, I have a few things from my childhood left. So, I kind of teary-eyed when I found this because I loved it so much. You can tell it's totally 70s because everything was made with metal. All toys were metal. We sat them out in the rain. They rusted. We still played with them. Nobody got sick. And the shops was fat. We didn't have seatbelts back then, so it didn't matter. So I found this was given to me when I was 9 years old, kids. So you know it's ancient. It's like a fossilized thing. I had to find it. That's it. It's my Super Friends lunchbox ornament. And there is Robin, Batman, what's her name? Wonder Woman and Superman. On the other side, it's Batgirl, Green Lantern, and the Flash. This is from the cartoon, the Saturday morning cartoon that I watched every Saturday morning in the 70s. And open it up as a thermos, a fake thermos with the Joker, Catwoman, and the Riddler.
That's classic Riddler right there.
That's awesome.
This is actually from the 70s, kids. These are from the 70s. So I kept it.
Did you put it up on your tree this year?
Well, I just found a couple days. I wish I did. I just found a couple days ago. So I'm kind of
Zoolander gag. Wait, the lunch goes inside the lunchbox?
on the side, There's Green Lantern here.
Yeah.
And on this side is Hawkman.
Man, that is awesome. I feel like it's not completely accurate because Batgirl never showed up in Super Friends.
Yeah, I think so, right? Yeah. So why did they put her on here, though?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's you could have had Hawkwoman, you could have had many other not too many other females.
Well, this is my first question. The ones that were missing that I was pissed about. Wonder Twin powers activate, form of a pail of water. Why aren't Zach and Jana bigger? I want Bleak. I want the whole thing. Did they do more after? I don't know this. Did they do more after the show? Were they in comics? I want a spinoff. What's going on?
A spinoff? Wow. You're the first to ever say that. I don't know how to.
Either of you take that.
They did show up in there's a series in the late 80s, early 90s, Total Justice from DC, where they brought in Zan and Jaina, as aliens from another planet that came in. I mean, it wasn't quite like the Super Friends version, but it was them, but kind of tweaked to be a little bit like 90s. And then Mark Russell, who's a great writer for DC, they just finished up a 12-issue run of the Wonder Twins for DC, where they're kind of basically like interns at the Hall of Justice.
I remember them coming back with the mid-2000s when they tried to reboot Teen Titans for the billionth time. They were kind of in a small arc there, but yeah, there's always like an extra. Like no one goes to Carl's Jr. just for the fried zucchini. It's just kind of like, I'm here, I'm gonna get some extra. But
that's true. But I think ask everybody, they love they have such fondness for those characters, but like nobody really does much with them, it seems.
Because I would have swore though on Smallville, I think what they mentioned once, or they were on her side. I feel like that happened.
Oh, I'm sure. Like who wasn't name checked at some point on Smallville, and got to show off their powers, while Clark Kent just couldn't fly like a chump.
It was I don't know when exactly. It was late. Like it was like past the point of Smallville's like, it's Smallville, must see TV. It was like, that show's still on. I'd been like seasons 8, 9, or 10 or something.
But I didn't mind those seasons because at least they had like bits of the Legion, they had the Justice Society.
That show ended with Bizarro, and I'll stand by it.
I love it. Yes.
Michael Shanks' Hawkman was just the costume wasn't so well realized, but I do enjoy him as an actor. Just unfortunate with the costume.
Okay, back to the Wonder Twins. Okay, why was it that the chick that had the worst one? She was always like woolly mammoth, and he was like a glacier and water. And I always thought he had the cool one. What's that about?
I'm torn. Well, but do you think Zan had the cooler power?
I think both of them were kind of complementary to each other. Like I think of them as like a combined unit. Like this is another deep reference, not a comic book reference, but Team Knight Rider had the combo car, and the fact there were two different things together was fine by me. I never picked one over the other.
I was always kind of bummed because I mean, like Jaina got she could transform into an eagle, and there's always then Zan was just transforming into like a water that he just happened to like Gleek's bucket, so they could transport him around. Like his power never allowed him to really go anywhere on his own power. He's always had to be carried somewhere in a bucket.
Well, you put it that way. That sounds late. I was like, I want to be the elements, but yeah, being carried in a bucket. That is depressing, actually.
I just want to say, I want to spin off. Have me. I'll do a spin off. I'll write it. I want that.
Well, they are currently seen in DC versus Vampires. A new miniseries that just started. It's 12 issues. I think 3 have come out. So James Tynion, who's just wrapped up his Batman run,
nice.
Is doing that. So it's it's kind of like its own like standalone universe story for DC, kind of like Injustice and stuff like that.
Any good?
It's not bad. Yeah. And you get to see like basically what if vampires, like the truce is broken and vampires no longer hold back and they're trying to take over the DC Earth. Who could stop them?
They were holding back. Oh damn!
Write it down. So I'm gonna ask my brother who buys comic books. I'm gonna ask him what to do, where to go, and do that. Okay. I don't know. I don't know about. He gets them digitally and in person. He goes to Jeffrey's Comics here in South Bay area, and then he also orders them online. So I was asking him like, how do you do this? They'll show me. Well, thank you for answering. I'm a big fan of the Wonder Twins. I mean, one of the few, but I am. Because when I was growing up, it was a big deal. When we were kids, it was a big deal. It was a good deal. Candace Mack, of course, you like everything. You like everything. There's nothing you don't watch and enjoy. I mean, come on.
Well, I know the last time they, at least for TV, they were during the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover on the CW, when they formed their own Hall of Justice. There was a cage with like Gleek's name on there. So,
okay.
Yes.
Well, I love something like all this stuff. I love it. Okay, here's one that's controversial. You guys are ready? Did Wonder Woman basically rape Homeboy in Wonder Woman 1984? Because it really wasn't Steve Trevor. It was another guy.
Yes. The short answer is yes. It was weird. It was weird.
And no one talked about it. It's like when he came back, I'm like, oh, this is right. That wasn't him. That was his user's body. That wasn't even him.
It's funny because that was like a year ago. Wow. Times. Okay. So the first Wonder Woman was like not perfect, but it was good and it had charm and it was a warrior that liked ice cream. And this one, she just wanted her man back. And it was just, to me, so incongruent that this poor guy got a new face on it. So yes, the answer is yes. Even though it's not supposed to be that way, it was kind of cringe, personally.
Frank?
As someone who, as James knows, I'm dead inside. So, human emotions are hard for me to grasp onto and understand.
Yeah.
So for Wonder Woman to be pining for Chris Pine, for a man for so long,
dead inside Frank,
from World War I to all the way to in 1984. I don't know. It's just like, come on, Wonder Woman, you can move. Chris Pine's great, Steve Trevor's awesome, but move on.
There was no Tinder back then. What was you gonna do? Go to a bar?
Oh, you can't tell me that Wonder Woman could not pick up somebody.
I don't know, bro. I know a lot of my friends were attractive or single. I don't know.
Because everybody just assumes they already have a significant.
That's that story. They always say, I didn't ask you to date to the prom. I thought you had dates to the prom.
Imagine.
Because my second thing of that is that I had problems with that movie. My second thing was, so was Cheetah actually bad? In that movie, it seemed like I felt sorry for her. Like, she was just being, excuse my language, fucked over all the time. So I like, was she bad? And they kind of were fighting, but she was trying to help her. I was really confused on who the bad, because the other guy did wrong and did all the stuff that was wrong because reunited with his child. You're like, oh, okay, bye. Nothing happens to him. But homegirl, I'm like, what's going on? So explain.
Explain. It was very Joel Schumacher. I mean, I guess even the villain's supposed to be made with redeeming qualities, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's one of those situations where you go like, oh, you're just a nerd that fell into a vat of acid. And this acid just happened to be, the whatever, the MacGuffin of the thing. So no, it wasn't that bad. I think that's really the problem. It was like, I mean, you're basically fighting the war last time. And now you're just going, dope soundtrack though.
Yeah, but Frank, was Cheetah in the comics? Was there a whole thing? I mean, did it follow anything, or was it just?
Well, like, I mean, they've done a couple different versions of Cheetah's origin in the comics. I mean, like whether her original from the Silver Age to when George Perez kind of rebooted Wonder Woman after Crisis on Infinite Earths in the mid '80s, to when Greg Rucka took her over. Like 5 years ago, kind of the when they kind of rebooted the universe again. So I felt like that they did a big Cheetah origin. I felt like, if anything, that was the best version of Cheetah that I saw, because it really kind of establishes how close that Barbara, before she becomes a Cheetah, and Wonder Woman already have a kind of a relationship and a friendship, and then you can really see how just some choices that are made, between the both of them, lead to Barbara becoming the Cheetah, and why she is not necessarily that big of a fan of Wonder Woman. And I feel like that feels better. This one in the movie, I felt like it never really set up why she should be against Wonder Woman.
Right.
Really, there's no reason for that.
Yeah, it didn't work for me. It's just a lot of things in the movie didn't work for me. I was like, oh, this is. But I did like the first one. I did like it. That's kind of crazy. I had another question from that. What was that and that? No, I guess that was it. Okay, that was it for that one. Okay.
How long has Frank been dead inside? Like, is that a recent?
I don't know, 7 years. Oh, he's been dead
forever.
Oh wow, man!
Yeah.
I would feel bad, but you seem so complacent with it. You're fine.
No, I came in the world like that, Flobo.
Oh, okay, yeah, respect.
That's how I'm going out.
Yeah, that's the way to go, man. Because consistency matters.
You're
gonna bury the lead.
He's committing. That's right.
Next question.
Next question. Next question.
He's dead. Next question.
He's dead. He's dead. I mean, I you said I was like, you're right. I don't any question that. Okay. Aquaman. Huge hit at the box office. The gays and the girls loved him. That usually what makes it hit. Everybody else followed. But the question is, growing up and in the comics, was Aquaman kind of a joke?
It depends on the age. The short answer is yes. But when I grew up, he was a joke for a different reason. When I was getting the comics the first time, it was that weird like sword and sandal thing with the hand, and they tried to reboot him after the hand to be a little bit more of like that mystical stuff, and that was like try hard lame. But before that, a generation before that, it was like he talks to fish lame. So it was almost like you had this lame character. It would overcompensate in the 90s. And to me, the first time I actually liked Aquaman was in Batman Brave and the Bold, the cartoon. That was hilarious. Having that Ernest Hemingway Aquaman was great, but he's been a joke for a long time, for sure.
Right.
Although I feel like of like many of the superpowers, as a kid that you want to try to recreate. I mean, you can't run super fast like the Flash. I mean, you can run, but it's not going to give you that sense of feeling. You can't fly. You can't shoot your webs and swing around, but you can swim underwater, for as long as you can hold your breath and kind of have that feeling of being Aquaman. So I don't know. I mean, I never thought of him as a joke as a kid. I mean, certainly, you kind of see how he's kind of treated by, not within the comic book universe. I mean, he's the king of Atlantis. He's always kind of given that sort of respect. So within universe, he's never treated as a joke. It's just basically how everybody kind of sees it as fans looking on that character. Talking to fish. What kind of power is that? I don't know. I didn't mind the Peter David kind of reboot with the hook for the hand, where he gets his hand gnawed off in the first issue, and then he's got the hook for the longest time.
The water hand. The water hand, was that, were you a fan of that?
But then he got the water hand after that.
Yep.
Which was like, I felt like at that time, because after a while you're like, man, how practical it is just having a hook for a hand. I mean, that's just a long time, man. He had it for quite a while in the comics. It's like,
I will say, when they gave him the hook hand in Justice League Unlimited, I was like, well done. Bravo. You went there for the kids.
But I agree with you, Flobo. I enjoy the Batman Brave and the Bold interpretation so much.
Oh yeah.
that the movie frustrated me, and it just, for a variety of reasons. I just don't think he was that great of an Aquaman for me. I mean, story aside, there was a lot of story elements that weren't that great either. But I mean, but I felt no reason by the end of the movie that he'd really proven why he was Aquaman. So when he comes off and he's like, as usual through a lot of superhero origin stories, the last scene is always him kind of, using his powers and then popping up for a cool, like, still where you can, like, I am blank, insert superhero name.
Right.
So when he pops up out of the ocean, I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, I guess you say you're Aquaman, so I guess I have to believe it, but
my biggest issue was two. One, it was kind of dark, like literally physically dark in the water, and two, a lot of the other kingdoms were not really established. Like, oh, that's one. Never mind. They kind of were not as important. But James said it doesn't matter if we like it. It matters if everyone else likes it, right?
All I know is when he came out of that water, just declare he was Aquaman. I believed whatever the F he said. I was like, man,
you can't be wet. You're underwater.
You could be doubly wet. I don't know.
You're only wet till you get out of the water.
How do you know, Frank? You don't know. I mean, Frank, one person.
Yeah, Frank. How do you know about people?
Well, all I know is he was hot. That's all that matters to me. That's why.
He was.
True.
I loved it. I was glad that he was that he wasn't just a white dude. Also, I'm glad that he was a kind of an ethnic type underwater guy they picked for this.
That makes sense, it wasn't like an ethnic guy for the sake of being ethnic. It was like, oh yeah, the Polynesian culture is very maritime.
And Candace Mack, now that I know who Roman Reigns is, yes, he could be a great Aquaman. I would watch him plow the water and declare he was Aquaman. So
everyone always compares him to the two.
Not a problem for me. Not know who he is. I'm like, not a problem for me. I would watch that movie. Anyway, thank you guys. Yes.
You want me to agree? I don't know.
I said thank you. I'm talking to you straight guys. So I just said thank you. That's all. Right.
Oh, he's hot. All right, I get it. I'm not jealous.
Like, yeah, there you go.
I'm not jealous. No. I have an ab in the works. Just one. just one.
Just one. One is good. Just start with one.
Just
five.
one.
Yeah, start one. Fine. But this actually it leads to another question I was going to ask later, but kind of you guys have brought up. How many alliterations have there been of the Batman story on television, animated, live action? Because I feel like there's Gotham, I know for sure, and the Dark Batman one or whatever. There was one that was a dark. I just like there's so many different kinds. I mean, like how many? Well, there's a lot of them, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, although I guess in the Batman '66 show, they never showed it. I mean, you just kind of knew what the origin was, and I think he mentions it in one episode, but you never see it. So I mean, you've got, I think the Super Friends did an episode of that. Back when they were like towards the end, when they were like the Galactic Guardians, Firestorm was in the mix. I think they did an episode there where Scarecrow kind of freaks him out. And then you got Batman the Animated Series, and then you've got
the Batman,
which was all right.
It grew on me. It's like, why Jackie Chan Adventures? Oh, the same animation studio. That's at least 3. And then the movies.
Gotham. I know it was Gotham. Wasn't that a Batman type?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember being an AfterBuzz and they were doing the Gotham After Show. I don't know who did it, but I mean that was.
I worked at Fox then. I didn't want to watch that show. I mean, Jesus Christ! I had to review it. I had to recap it for Hulu.
I don't know. For me, I just found it hard to buy. Like Batman is such a necessary component of I guess like the big thing is like did Gotham create Batman? Did Batman create the villains that he fights? So to have all these villains kind of running around before Batman is just like a teenager, it just seems so weird to me.
Yeah, I feel like if Gotham was like Gotham Central, I would have been on board. Like the cops during the time it happens, but him being a kid is like, all right, Moses, get those powers. Let's go.
The character mentions Batman Beyond.
Oh yeah, Batman Beyond. Well, I mean that took place in the future, and I know Bruce sat him down and talked about losing his parents, but I don't think there was an episode about it. It was an episode we told Terry McGinnis that. Let me know, Candace. I don't remember.
Yeah, Candace, that's right. Yes, okay. So here's the thing. So there's Gotham and Metropolis. Where are they?
That is an awesome. Sorry, Frank. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
So the answer is wherever you think it is.
Okay.
Because there's some iterations that has Metropolis and Gotham on the opposite sides of the same bay. And then there's people that feel like, oh, Metropolis is New York, whereas Gotham is Chicago. But it really comes down to who really wants to editorialize where it is. If you want my opinion, I like to think in my brain Metropolis being New York and like Gotham being like Newark, but that's just my personal thing. There's no comic evidence I have to be like, oh, it proves it. You know what I'm saying?
Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you looked at a map of the DC universe, I mean, they have their own New York and they have their own Chicago's.
They do have them.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, if you look at a map, there's always going to be, I think I was looking at one recently and they showed where Metropolis was, and it seemed kind of like closer to like where Philadelphia is of sorts. Not quite Philadelphia, but
like below New York.
Yeah.
Or below Jersey, like below. Yeah, I know. Okay.
So yeah, but it's always weird because I mean, Marvel, and that was the interesting thing about when they did the Justice League versus Avengers 4-issue comic crossover in the early 2000s.
Yeah, crossover. Wow.
Yeah, it was great. Kurt Busiek, George Perez. It's basically a phenomenal artist getting to do the story that he was meant to do, where you get to see what happens when they cross each other's Earths. And the one thing that they notice about is that even the size of the planets themselves, planet Earths, are different because as we know, there's Metropolis, Gotham, a few other different cities, and Marvel has kind of always treated it where it's the world outside your door. Mm-hmm. They pretty much just kept it all real, and so they said, well, even the planet's bigger because it's got extra cities that we don't even have in our universe. So I always thought that was a cool touch.
Interesting. Oh, wow, that is very interesting.
Here's my question for you, Frank. Where is National City in Metropolis? That was a question I always figured out. I wanted to figure it out when they had Supergirl. Like,
Oh yeah.
well, is it close? Is it far? Like they're texting, so it can't be that close, but it looks like
I know. They're always kind of like it always felt like National City was kind of like a Los Angeles kind of standard, and only because they shot the first season in LA.
True.
And I just think of that.
Right.
But yeah, who knows where yeah, you're right. I don't know where National City is supposed to be.
Well, it was definitely Vancouver season 2.
That's true.
They're like, yeah, that budget.
I've been in Vancouver. I like Vancouver.
Oh,
Interesting. Yeah, I always wondered that myself. I had heard the whole Chicago thing is this and that's so. But you're saying places have a New York Chicago in them. That's really interesting.
mhm.
But to go back to Batman 1 second though, it's like I feel like it's not even worth doing a Batman TV show because the films, at least the way it seems like Warner Brothers is set up, and maybe hopefully it'll change in the future, is they're never going to let you do Batman on the TV show. You might, it's always teased. It's never actually seen, and so it's not even like, yeah, I don't want to do it. Like they did Birds of Prey, and it was like, oh, Batman was seen for a hot second at the very first in the pilot episode, and then that was it. He's always gone. Or in Batwoman, Bruce Wayne's he's gone. He's missing. Nobody knows what's happened to him.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I
like Katie Kane too. I just felt like, why even resurrect this whole thing when you want Bruce?
Yes, exactly.
You want him.
How do we feel about Batwoman?
Okay. So for context, they came up with Supergirl first, and to me, what I didn't like about Supergirl.
I'm like, I remember Batgirl growing up. So like, where does that come in?
Oh, well, Batwoman was around. I mean, to be honest with you, Batwoman was before Batgirl, I think, because Katie Kane was a comic book character in the 50s, I think.
Oh, wow.
She had her own Batmobile. She was just kind of like in disuse for anything. But I mean, the CW version, they had Supergirl, and my problem with Supergirl season 1 was that they kept mentioning Clark. Your cousin would love you. He's so proud of you. And Clark would text her. You're like, I wonder what he's doing. Why is he doing that? So when Batwoman came, I came into the show, unfortunately, with how many times you're going to stuff Bruce into this. And in the first pilot, definitely had to do that. So it was kind of like, I'm out. Now, since then, there's been a whole Batwoman change. And the only Gotham character I actually like is Batwing. And now he's on the show. So I should get back into it. But I wrote that show off unfairly early because of Supergirl.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was intrigued by it. I mean, because like this version of well, at least the Ruby Rose version was kind of created by Greg Rucka in the early 2000s. It's just kind of like the paler skin, the kind of the red wig that she puts on underneath the costume. So yeah, I was kind of intrigued by that. And so when she was introduced in the CW crossover showed up, I was like, all right, but I never really got into watching your show. I don't know what it was. I think I was just kind of turned off by like, you keep name checking Bruce Wayne and we're just never gonna.
Yeah.
Like the show tries to make it seem like such a big deal, but we're never gonna know because we're never gonna see Bruce Wayne.
It's a side quest to show. It's all side quests.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, because I grew up with the original Batman series with Adam West and all that. I grew up with all that. The
only Batman I like, actually, but it's another story. But go ahead.
It was very late 60s, very campy. That's what I grew up with, obviously. And they had Batgirl. I used to love Batgirl. I used to love when she would come on. She came on there, she was recurring. She would come on. She had her own little opening. She would come on in the opening. It was like really fun. Has there been a Batgirl? There's been a Batgirl show, has there?
Not Batgirl specific, but there was Birds of Prey, where she was Oracle. And so, when it comes to Batgirl, I feel like the fandom is very divided on how they want to see that character, how they want to see Barbara Gordon, because she was in The Killing Joke, she was shot and paralyzed by the Joker.
Okay.
And then after that, John Ostrander kind of resurrected her in the Suicide Squad as Oracle, who was like a computer whiz. You didn't know it was Barbara Gordon at first, but that was the mystery of like, who was Oracle. And it was finally revealed that it was Barbara Gordon, and she had kind of found a way to kind of help fight crime, even though she had lost the use of her legs.
Oh, wow.
And she was that version of that character for so long and people love seeing that. They seem like to see somebody that had a disability that was able to overcome it and still, make a meaningful contribution in the fight against crime. And then they did DC New 52, and they kind of reverted Barbara Gordon back to now she can walk. And people did not really love that because they felt like it was throwing shade at like, oh, wait, so, you don't like people with disabilities, but Barbara Gordon can't be disable and still fight crime. So I feel there's a definite line of people who want to see Barbara Gordon as Oracle and kind of being true to kind of as a disabled hero, and other ones that are like, oh no, I mean, I love Batgirl from the 60s and 70s. So I want to see that kind of active crime fighter version.
I am cool with either one, but just get rid of that scene of her banging Batman. That was not cool.
Oh,
that was not cool. Sorry, but I actually like the New 52. I won't get into it, but that scene in the Killing Joke animated show or movie pissed me off. But I saw it in the theaters. I paid good money to see that.
Oh,
I didn't see it, so I'm like, that's crazy. And there was a boy besides the one we know. Was there or just was always Batman, younger, older? There's never like a alliteration of.
No, because I mean, I guess the big thing was that he'd spent his teen years kind of scouring the world, learning the skills that he would need to take on the war against crime. So there's always been stories kind of set in those teen years in the comics of what Bruce Wayne's kind of adventures were, traveling to, different countries, learning their fighting styles, learning detective skills, working like with Zatanna's father, Zatara, the magician, to kind of learn sleight of hand and how magic worked. And then he kind of, when he comes in, then I guess if you read like Frank Miller's Batman Year One, kind of see that kind of realized version of how he kind of evolves into adopting the guise of Batman.
But it's just, I remember in the 70s and 80s when they were doing all kinds of weird stuff. I remember seeing a Superboy at some point, and I think it was a Wonder Girl. Or they always had other versions of, they were all doing drugs back then, I'm sure, and they were just throwing shit at the wall. I remember like, when they had Scooby-Doo, had Scrappy Doo. I mean, there was always these weird things happened. They were back then when I was a kid. They were doing. So I never saw it besides the famous Batboy thing. That's not a comic hero. I just thought they never seen a Batboy. I just never seen.
No, it's true. I mean, they always had Robin, and Robin's been around. He was like the first sidekick. So
that's my next question, kids. So should Robin does he have his own series? Does he ever have his own comics? Does he have his own adventures ever? Did they do any of that or no?
It's hard because there's so many of them. Like what other shows about Robins? You know what I mean?
All the Robins, Rock and Roll. Exactly. So I don't know. I don't know anything.
I don't think there hasn't been a strictly. I mean, there's Titans, and Titans, but that's kind of an ensemble with the other Teen Titans.
So guys, tell me what's Titans? Who are in Titans?
You get Starfire, Robin / Nightwing, whatever his version is, and you've got Beast Boy, Raven. No Cyborg in Titans.
No, because they promoted him with the New 52.
Yeah. And he hangs out with the Doom Patrol now. So.
Oh yeah, I forget about that. Yeah.
There's versions of himself, and Nightwing is also a version of him too. Is that what's going on? What's going on?
Oh yeah. Yes. The original Robin, Dick Grayson. I think it was the 70s, late in the 70s. He decided to go in his own way, and the guy basically just shedded the costume. It was a big time in the 70s. People were just changing things. Like Captain America was like, "Fuck America," but Robin went and decided to go find his own person. He became Nightwing. And I think that there are times where he'll come in and sub it as Batman if he's not around, or could become Robin. But like Nightwing has his own legion of fans, much like how Oracle has her own legion of fans, as far as Dick Grayson's concerned.
Did I know that? So Nightwing is another part of Robin.
The first Robin,
yeah, he was great, and it's kind of like the first idea of a superhero or sidekick kind of graduating, becoming their own person. And his first costume is phenomenal. Love it.
Yeah, with the plunging neckline.
Yes, that is. I love that. I mean, he's got the huge pop collar.
Oh my god,
I am such a sucker for that.
I see Frank in the store like, no, that's all right there. That's fashion.
Yes. I mean, James, you want to read that? Read the Judas Contract from Teen Titans. That'll kind of tell you the story of how Robin becomes Nightwing. Yeah, and the real world story is that the Batman comic offices, they wanted to have Robin back in the Batman books, but Marv Wolfman and George Perez didn't want to give Dick Grayson back to them. So the compromise they made is like, all right, we'll keep Dick Grayson, we'll change him and make him Nightwing, and you guys can have him the idea of Robin back. And they did that, and they pulled out Jason Todd to kind of take the mantle of Robin at that point.
Robins are there? Then you said there's several. Like,
I mean, you've got Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, then you've got Tim Drake, and then you've got Stephanie Brown.
Do you count Stephanie Brown?
Yeah, I mean, she was for a hot second. You've got, if you went into the Batman, the Dark Knight Returns,
right?
You've got Carrie Kelly,
and then
Damian Wayne, and I think that's it. Yeah, in terms for Robins.
Yeah, so half a dozen Robins.
Yeah,
that's a rip. I never knew that. Okay, speaking of that, on a side note, okay, so we have Superman, we have Supergirl, we've had Superboy. Was there ever a Superwoman?
Yes.
I'm not your super. What? So there was, and who was she? And like we know, one's a cousin, what was she to the family?
She was never a family member.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, she was somebody else that had the power. And I can't remember her name or backstory.
The first version was actually
Kryptonian.
Stronger. Yeah, she was actually stronger than Clark. I remember the first comic book cover, her being like tossing this dude off into the sun. It was great. And there were some iterations where Lois Lane was Superwoman for a bit. It was kind of like, oh, all right, hey, you know.
So we had Lois Lane and Lana Lang.
Right. Yes.
There's of course I remember the campy Superman and Lois back in the 90s with Gene Kane and Terry Hatcher. And then you also had, of course, growing up, I had Superman movies, the 50s Superman with George Reeves.
Luma Lanai, by the way.
Sorry?
Luma Lanai was the second Superwoman. The first pre-crisis. Oh, whatever. Yeah.
All right. So I saw. But then also we have the Supermans of later, of course, Man of Steel and all that. And then there's so many Supermenses and menses and men. I don't know what the plurals are. Which one do you think is one of the better Supermans? Because you also had Smallville. You had this. Which one do you think was the classic Superman? Compared, because you read the comics too. So what do you feel like really kept the comics? If that's possible, and that was close to that, and that's not possible.
My brain is trying to predict what Frank's going to say here.
It is interesting how opinions would change. Like as a kid, when they have Lois and Clark, the New Adventures of Superman, I'm just excited to have a Superman show. Yeah. So Dean Cain, fantastic. All right, that's great. As I've distanced from the show and I've gotten older. But there's still some nice things. Dean Cain's is, whatever his deal is, but there are some nice touches in that show. In regards to how they treated Superman and Clark Kent, I think it just kind of spun off too campy by the end of it, for my taste.
It was very campy. I did watch that. It was very campy. But yeah, Christopher Reeves, obviously in the films, not counting Superman 3 with Richard Pryor. Those are the first two I thought were decent.
Well, I think and Flobo, tell me if you agree or not, but I think of all the other kind of iterations, actors that have brought Superman to the screen, small or large, like Christopher Reeve, I think really nailed it in terms of you could buy that Clark Kent and Superman were two different people.
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100%. Because a lot of people always ask, because I'm a big Superman fan, that's my third favorite superhero of all time. They're like, oh, how can people can't tell he has glasses? I was like, well, why would Superman pretend to be Clark? And you could totally tell that Christopher Reeve was a guy that you could push over or drop an elbow at work and no one would give a damn. So that's a classic answer. That's one that played the house growing up. I would say my Superman was a Timverse one, the animated series, the Batman Superman Adventures, because even though he was depowered a little bit, he wasn't like bullets weren't bouncing off him like that. But to me, that was the right balance of strength and humility. And as a first generation American, I understand like coming to a job you hate, but you have to provide for people, so I always identify with that. So that was like my favorite one. I like Henry Cavill's take on it. I really thought that was pretty cool. And I like Man of Steel. It's a movie that no one really loves as much as I do, but definitely the animated series from the 90s is mine.
That's a good call. I feel like both with Brandon Routh and Henry Cavill, I feel like I never really got to see. I felt they're good actors as Superman, but I felt like the scripts around them for me weren't the best. I felt especially with Brandon Routh, I felt Superman Returns was so so slavishly tied to the Richard Donner films that it just wasn't a great film, and I feel like you really kind of lost. Brandon Routh kind of got the short end of the stick of that.
Absolutely. It's a hard deal because Superman's such a cool character, but everyone who doesn't know comics from a top level goes, he's too boring, he's too overpowered. And so you're sitting there going, well, how can you make him relatable? I know, let's stab him with kryptonite. Like, let's have him kill someone. And these ideas I get on the writing stage, but ultimately that's not what it is. Like, Superman's powers is restraint. He can kill you, Mr. Majestic, anyone, he just chooses not to. So I don't know. I'll get me started. I get my soapbox.
That's the problem with Man of Steel. He did kill someone.
Right. He did. And it's definitely something that divided a lot of fans. But I get it. Like, how long? Look, he just went to that guy's church service and go, oh, Superman. Like, of course, he doesn't know anything about that because this whole story is different. He wasn't Superman for years and years and years. So I'm giving it a pass if it paid off, and it didn't. So because afterward it didn't pay off the way I thought it would, I'm like, oh. But at the time, I'm like, yeah, I got all, what do I do? It's this family. These random 4 people after living in the city might get killed.
What about Tom Welling playing in Smallville? We didn't like him as the young budding Superman.
I mean, I have a very soft spot for the last episode of that series. I don't know. Who knows what the real story is? You always read stuff and you hear stuff. I mean, but you hear that Tom Welling did not want to put on the Superman costume for that last episode, and that always bugged me. I mean, because you only see him in like silhouette or super close up. You never see him fully in the costume. The closest you get is at the very end when he starts running on the rooftop of the Daily Planet, and he opens up and you see the S under the shirt. But that's it. You never see him in the Superman costume, and it's such a bummer because the emotional payoff in there I think works, and it was cool where he connects with Lois, and Lois sees that he's finally embraced his heritage, and he's embraced the idea of being Superman, and yet we never get to really see him as Superman. And it was always a bummer to me.
Yeah, for me, it's more of like, there's nothing wrong. I just feel like there's a lot stronger interpretations I like, but I'm not saying he was bad. It just, I know for a lot of people, Smallville was their Superman, and I will never knock him for that. But because for so long he was a guy named Clark and not Superman, I don't count it. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
He was in Superman training.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know, I feel like the show is maybe a victim of its own success. I mean, the idea was like, hey, it's 5 seasons, no tights, no flights. Okay. But then the show does well, and all of a sudden you get 6, 7, 8. The original creators, they leave the show, but the people that are following them want to kind of honor their initial idea for the show. And I just don't think that no tights, no flights works for a show that went 10 seasons. I think they needed to adapt and change from there.
10 full seasons. Talking about 22 episode seasons.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's.
Yeah, it's those 10 episode seasons that you get these days. Nope.
Right.
Now, I happen to know 2 guys who played Lex Luthor. I know John Cryer and I know Michael Rosenbaum.
Damn.
So, and I think they both did a great job. So, what are your thoughts about them each playing Lex Luthor? Oh, it was a sigh. We got a sigh going on.
John Cryer was great. I'm not knocking him, but I think Michael Rosenbaum was better. But I always hesitate because of how the behind the scenes stuff, how he hated the role and tried as hard to get out of the role. You know what I mean? Like that to me, I cannot separate. But as far as like interpretation of Lex, having Lex be a friend that got his heart broken is a lot more understandable than being like, this is an alien, get rid of him, because it's kind of like, you know?
Right.
Yes, I would agree with what Flobo said as well. It was tough with the Smallville one because it does make it, in one way you could look at Clark as being a big jerk for never sharing with who he says is like his best friend the secret, and you're kind of hamstrung because is that too divergent from the core concept of Superman. Lex Luthor would never know his identity. Clark Kent would never tell him his identity, and maybe they're too hamstrung by that. But how they executed in Smallville, you're like, well, why wouldn't he tell him? I don't understand. It was hard to buy why he would keep avoiding telling.
I'm keeping you safe. Was everyone?
Yeah. All right.
The Flash Arrow. I'm keeping you safe. Okay.
Ugh.
Okay, I have another question for you guys. I want to decide which. I have 3 questions. I want to decide which way I want to go.
But James, before speaking of Lois and Clark, though, I mean, we did have the John Shea as Lex Luthor in that. Yes,
it was great.
Look at his hair, though. I was so jealous.
I love his hair. Oh, he had great hair. But see, again, that's one of the few Superman series I watched from beginning to the end because it was a little campy and it was all prime time network, a little soapy here and there. I loved it. I loved it. So I was a big fan. So,
but to go to what Flobo was saying, I would probably say my favorite interpretation though is Clancy Brown.
Oh, I'm so glad you said it. I don't want to be the animation guy too heavy, but thank you so much.
His Luthor, phenomenal. And that they carried it through not just Superman the animated series, but Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, to where he gets the big payoff at the end with Darkseid.
Oh,
he's like, oh, he had put on his business suit. Oh, hot damn.
So people talk about iterations of characters. Like I hate Batman. You can talk about that soon if you like to. It's my least favorite superhero character of all time. But what I liked about Luthor is like, he was a business person. I like Jesse Eisenberg. Like I'm a neurotic. Like no, this guy is smarter than most people. Whether who you ask, either top 2 or top 5, because y'all know Mr. Terrific is number 3 for some reason. But his thing was always, look, man, I really believe that I'm the good guy here. And if I have the money and the means to make this suit or this ray, you know what I mean? Like he felt he was a hero. That's why I like that so much more. Thanks, Frank. Thank you so much.
Yes, folks. Brad and Ralph, because they came from soaps, and Christopher Reeve came from soaps. Yes, I remember Brad when he was on One Life to Live.
Oh, wow.
That's being a soap connection in here. Yes, I did. I did watch him when he was on there, and also he did an episode of Will and Grace.
Oh, that's even better. So love with that.
Yeah.
He played Barney Miller's love interest. Hal Linden was on there, and he played his love interest. So it was very interesting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very interesting episode. It's a hilarious episode.
Scott Pilgrim, man.
It's really good. I'm like, what weird. My worlds are colliding. It's like River Barney Miller, so it's like a weird. The worlds are colliding. They're colliding. Okay. So, before we get to the last couple of questions I have for you, and then I have like an overall thing I want to talk to you guys about. Well, this question's only if you guys have watched them, I guess. But I was just wondering, I feel like I have to ask this, what do you think was the best DC TV show? That includes the current crop, past crop.
Live action or overall?
Live action, could be animated. Which one do you think is, or does it change, or can you not catch it? I mean, I'm just wondering, what do you think is the best, like, execution wise? Because you guys read the comics too.
I have a soft spot for Justice League Unlimited specifically, but those two, but Justice League Unlimited. And the reason being is that they found a way to present some of the modern interpretations of characters, some ones you kind of forgot about, like the Question, like, you know what I mean, or Vigilante. I personally love my favorite superhero of all time, which is Green Lantern John Stewart. Got a little bit of his own service in that show. He was not just a loud, brash, cosmic odyssey. Oh, yellow planet. Oh, damn. But he was actually made to be more militaristic. And when I used to air 6 p.m. on Saturdays, I cleared my schedule, man. Like that theme rock song riff was on. I was all about that. So definitely JLU for sure.
You're gonna find I can't disagree with that. Especially the 2 episodes when I kind of spun off to Justice League Unlimited. You got Dwayne McDuffie kind of writing that, especially the second season.
Dwayne McDuffie, that's the soul.
Yes, man, just phenomenal. Just the arcs that he had throughout those 2 seasons for these characters. Just fantastic work. The addition of just some great unsung characters from DC that you never thought you'd get to see animated.
Yeah. Icon got a little bit of time in the sun.
Yes.
Icon and Rocket. Yeah.
Vigilante. Like who would have thought like the old school cowboy vigilante would show up?
Yeah, Greg Saunders. Yeah.
Yes. I would put it close to. It's like I do have a soft spot for Young Justice. It's another animated show.
Oh, that's another one too. Yep.
But I do love the world building that they've done. It's currently in its 4th season right now, but I enjoy the world building that's going on.
I'm a season behind. I am very whelmed. I have to check those last 2
I know you can be overwhelmed and underwhelmed. Can you just be whelmed?
Yeah.
Yes. But I would say what I find similar about Justice League and Young Justice is that for me, I enjoyed the first seasons of both shows, and then I felt like both shows like leveled up in a major way their second seasons. They took like everything that you didn't even realize you wanted out of that show and put it into the second seasons, and took a show that I was already a huge fan of and was like, whoa, holy cow, this is phenomenal.
DC kills the animation. They just do. They just do.
We haven't watched X-Men '97 though yet, guys.
Well, you know,
I'll tell you that.
I know you can't. I know you can't discuss it, but that was a show that all my friends liked, and I didn't, only because I would miss one Saturday and be lost. I'm like, wait, what happened? So I'm hoping some contest storytelling, or at least I can binge it. Crossing fingers, so I know what the hell's going on. But before I forget about the Justice the DC stuff, we only live action stuff is one thing. I always wish they did like a Static Shock live action or Green Lantern Girl live action, you know, the one they say they're coming. But another animated series that doesn't get as much love as I think it should is the Zeta Project. It was kind of quirky and dumb, but I kind of liked it for what it was. You know what I mean? It was a little offshoot of a spinoff. It was pretty nice.
I did watch every episode of that too. Man. Yes. So yeah, look at that Flobo coming out with a nice shout out from the Zeta Project. Yes.
So I have a question for Flobo and one for Frank. And my side note, my favorite, because I'm not a comic fan, my favorite was the old Wonder Woman. So thank you, Linda Carter. I know it was funny because I was a kid and my father would watch the show. I watched it with him. And he was always glued to the television set. And I didn't realize till later why he was glued to the television set. It was very similar to years later when they had Baywatch. People would be glued to the television set. It was like, oh, because Linda Carter has big boobs and curvy waist, and she's always running.
Oh, I thought how she's going to win this fight without actually throwing a punch. That was always my thing. Like, she never fought anybody.
I didn't care about that. Men didn't care about that. It was part of Jiggle TV, which is part of the 70s, and I love it.
Jiggle.
Claudia's Angels, Three's Company, all that. I loved all that. That's no story.
But they always did a great job of her jumping. Like I always thought those nice fire shots that always look cool, just like going over a fountain or something. Oh, just always look nicely done.
I was a $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman fan first, and then I ended up coming over to Wonder Woman. So that's the story. But Flobo, why don't you ask me a question? I own this on DVD, and I should just throw it out because I never watched it again. Why was Green Lantern a horrible movie?
Oh wow. That is up to a lot of different interpretations.
I love it. So did you like the film then?
I like it, flaws and all. For two reasons. One, my favorite superhero got a movie, right? That doesn't happen to a lot of people. No one's asking for Aztec the Last Man, right? But for me, what I liked about Green Lantern and the promos or whatever is like they took time to talk about Oa. I thought the entire thing would have been on Earth. So the fact that we're going to go to space, the first one, was why I said, hey, look, it's worth a shot. If you're asking me as a fan why I didn't like it, Hal Jordan's arguably biggest nemesis is Parallax. Parallax is not a cloud. Parallax isn't just fear for the sake of being fear. Like if you want to go to the whole yellow impurity, you can, but that is a lot of story to compress. And that was only one villain. So now you give me Hector Hammond and this dust cloud. And they're trying to shoot it in a lighthearted way, like an Iron Man, where the space scenes are like really like moody and dark. To me, it was kind of weird. Now, with that said, soundtrack's great. I love Kilowog. You know what I'm saying? I like the fact that the last scene where he flies off of the sunset, I go, yeah, I can feel it. But yeah, it was a mess.
I didn't like it. Okay.
Wow. You know what? What? Defend this movie I hate is what James said.
It was frustrating because I felt like Hal Jordan as a character. I mean, he's his ability to overcome fear, and yet everybody else in the movie is the one that has to keep reassuring Hal Jordan. Yeah. Like, I don't know, Hal, you got it, man. You're great. Don't you realize how great you are, Hal? You can do this, Hal. Like, no, Hal Jordan is a test pilot. He comes with that already in. That's why he's selected. He doesn't need to be constantly reminded. So, and of all the Green Lantern villains, you're going to choose Hector Hammond? Hector Hammond? You fly this guy out to train him. You have a training montage, and the conflict is back on Earth. Great, but now it's a cloud. Do you hug the cloud? Yeah,
I don't know. Kyle Rayner was a Green Lantern for an entire generation. He wasn't even mentioned. I wanted a movie with him.
It's a shame. I mean, what I did like is they soft pedaled at least Sinestro somewhat. I did not like that they did like his turn into a Yellow Lantern in just the end credits. That is worthy of a whole second film to kind of find why Sinestro changes.
I'm like, why would you do that entire mythology to like just
Dennis Mack, I'm not surprised by anything you are. Okay. Let's leave it like that. Also for maybe for Frank, I thought they were going to do a Static Shock spinoff from Black Lightning.
Blacktricity.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Look at him!
There you go. Little Steve Austin for you, everybody.
I loved it. And the bionic dog, all of that. I loved all. You don't even understand.
Are you rubbing his? Rubbing his
Look at that chest. Look at that chest.
I thought it was a Fall Guy, but apparently it's.
That's right, man.
Way different. But Bionic Man, you understand? I'm just a little side note. This is not DC, but because I came up in that time period, those shows were huge. Like they were seriously huge. When they crossed over, the Lindsay, it was always like it was a big deal. When we were kids, it was like, oh my god, they're crossing over. They're bringing the Bionic Max, the Bionic Dog came on. It was like that whole opening, the whole opening sequence. They don't do opening sequences like that anymore on shows. Seriously, they explain what happened to him. And Homegirl, I had the biggest crush on Lindsay Wagner. That was my girl. And I wish I had one because who has one anymore? She had a phone book and she'd rip it in half in the opening. I was like, as a kid, I thought it was so cool. When we like, Jamie, well, I was Jamie back then. Jamie started trying to rip the phone books. I'm like, oh my God, I won't rip. I was so.
I think we all tried that.
Opening sequences literally would tell you what happened. He fell off the thing and he fell his bag and how to get replaced his arm. And I was a total geek for that. I loved it so much. That's what I was like. No story. But you laughed at that when there's a question. That was a question in the chat room. So what's the answer?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the question. Sorry.
From Black Lightning.
I don't know. I mean, well, it always seems anything from Milestone is that's, I don't know. You never quite their relationship with DC with Warner Brothers. You know, it's they've tried to kind of launch this line again, and and Icon and Static are kind of back now in the comics, but this is one that's kind of been in fits and starts with DC and Warner Brothers. So
I gotta explain that to James. I think it went over his head.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Okay, I don't want to be the resident black guy here, but so there was a consortium of black creators that created Milestone Comics, and Dwayne McDuffie, who we just mentioned a bunch of ago, was part of that group. He just passed away. So there was a lot of the idea was diverse comics that was going to show like superheroes that looked like us, that had problems, that were HIV positive, that were gangbangers or whatever. Just the way it was in the urban space. So Static came from that. Static Shock came from that. Icon was basically imagine Superman came to Earth, but he was a black guy that was a slave, basically the descendant of slaves, and he had a black sidekick in Rocket. This overview. So DC buys those characters, but keeps that universe separate for a long time. But then, if you notice in the late 90s, you see Static Shock come out, and people say, hey, don't we have our own Blacktricity? Black Lightning comes back with a reboot with Blue Devil, and they kind of did this weird merger thing. So everyone's kind of asking, will these characters get their due? Oh, Blood Syndicate, forgot about them. What get their due? So I get it. I was a Static kid growing up. Black Lightning being chosen for CW was kind of like, huh? But I don't know. Sorry, Frank. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I'm Flobo. That was great. I mean, I remember as a kid reading just like an issue of DC Comics Presents with Superman and Black Lightning. And so I've always been sucked into the Black Lightning, and to see like he was originally supposed to be in Super Friends, but because of issues with the creator of them, Tony Isabella, so they ended up doing Black Vulcan instead.
I was like, what?
So
who the hell's Black Vulcan?
We've never really heard or seen him since. So
well, Frank, now I want to ask you, this leads to my question to you. What was the best DC TV show that's on CW? That was on CW?
I guess I'm gonna have to say Flash. That's a reluctant. The Flash, I had my frustrations with Flash as well, but Arrow frustrated me because it was just too grim and dour, and it was basically like CW trying to do their version of Batman, but it being his Green Arrow. So I did not enjoy that, particularly that take. It was fine in small doses for me. I would watch it and skip through all the flashbacks constantly. I did not care.
That was half the story, bro.
I did not care. I did not care. Why? What stupid thing was going on that island? Did not care.
My problems. Get on with it.
Ask you a question because there was 5 or 6 shows they had on there at one time. I mean, like Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl. They're all.
Yes.
I remember Supergirl was on CBS at first. They went to CW, right? It was that whole thing. We said, what's the lesser channel? No. But I mean, so like they were all on. So what was the most successful one? Do you know which one was most successful?
I mean, I think the Flash is probably the most successful out of all of them. And I felt like what was nice about it was a nice shot in the arm because Arrow was pretty dour and kind of grim. And I felt like the Flash was a little bit more hopeful and optimistic. It's I think any challenge of doing a TV show for that long is that you can't, maintaining that kind of tone makes it kind of tough because you're trying to think of new things to do to, new twists on a variation. And so you get into like the darker stuff as well, which has happened to Flash. I feel like in one retrospect, like in one hand, Legends of Tomorrow kind of just does its own thing. And it is goofy and weird. And in that respect, you got to applaud that. I'd probably put that as a solid number 2. And as much as I love Superman with Flobo, my favorite character, I haven't even finished this first season of Superman from the CW, and it's the second season's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's Superman and Lois. What's it called?
Superman and Lois.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I do like him as a Superman. I think he's good. So
yeah.
It's that guy.
Tyler Hoechlin.
Yeah. It's not a Hoechlin. He's hot too. He's hot though. I don't know.
I mean, he's all right. He's no Aquaman.
No Flobo. I said no Flobo. So I went to you. I said no Flobo.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay. Oh, those side. I forgot to ask this earlier, you guys. Did either of you read Joss Whedon's treatment of Wonder Woman? I know it's legendary.
No, and I know I don't want to pile on, but I was never a fan of Joss Whedon. Before his allegations came out, I'm not speaking on those. When he rewrote Justice League, or when I sat in a theater and I said written by Joss Whedon, I was like, this is gonna suck. I knew it. I felt like there was just too much things in his formula where a lot of things that should be addressed seriously gets quipped away. A lot of the goofy humor tends to be like physical. Like now the Flash is tripping and touching Wonder Woman in the chest. I was never a fan of the guy. So no, I hadn't read it. So maybe I'm just a hater. I don't know how to answer that question.
Because for me, just before you start framing, for me, I was curious because I feel like he does write female characters. Like, I'm a big Buffy fan. So I mean, I like that. And I thought he wrote Buffy really well. I thought maybe this could be a very interesting thing for him. He writes female characters, but then I don't know.
I've never read it at all either, but I agree with you. I mean, like watching like Buffy and Angel, did enjoy the stuff he did there. I guess in one thought, I would think that both Buffy and Angel, the thing that helped it as well is that there was a writer's room. Yeah. And so you're not just, while it's Josh's idea, there are so many other writers that kind of bring their own stuff to it too, that, you're not getting just like a straight Joss Whedon that you would get in like a Wonder Woman script or a Justice League movie, for however much you try to change. I mean, that was never going to be a great situation, whatever, that Justice League movie. So
I had to mention because I know that it was stuff of legends, and it was talked about. And again, I mean, I know all the allegations came out, and I heard he's horrible. And even those Buffy were like, he was horrible. I love Buffy. I loved Angel. I enjoyed it. So
yeah.
Okay, last 2 questions of the questions. And the last will be kind of a thing that I can talk to you guys forever.
Yo, Frank, how I'm doing? Am I all right?
Not just all right. You, me.
No, man. Look, the chat says I agree with Frank, so let's go with that.
That happens on my show too. Trust me. I don't know.
It literally says that.
Yeah, they know my show too. Okay. Most underrated DC superhero.
Batwing.
Who's it called?
Batwing.
Who's Batwing? You had Nightwing. Who's Batwing?
That's it. Depending on how because there was 2 versions, right? The first one was like, so Batman decides at one point to license his name in like this in all different countries. So he had like a Batman of China, a Batman whatever. Batwing originally was a Batman of Africa, and it was like this product of this really war-torn or conflict-torn area called Davis Vimbe. But the Batwing I mean, and I love, I collected those comics. The covers were done by Darwin Cook, rest in peace. Was the son of Lucius Fox, Luke Fox. Lucius Fox is usually the guy like Morgan Freeman in the movies that helped build a tech or whatever. Has this powered suit he gives that Wayne Tech makes that Luke co-ops and fights crime in the underworld side of Gotham City. And his day job is the MMA fighter. So it's definitely a dualism I can relate to, having someone who actually beats people up for a living. So when that came out, I go, I don't like a lot of Gotham City characters except for the Riddler. So, but Batwing was kind of something I really, really enjoyed because like I understand MMA Fire doing this. I get having the superpower tech. I understand why he's more durable than just being on Batman. So that was the one. I always feel like that's the one I get.
Like, so why like the Riddler so much at all of them?
So to be fair, a lot of the things that make the Riddler cool, gets co-opted by the Joker, especially by casual fans. But of all the Batman villains, whether you mean from Joker to Catwoman to Counterman, the Riddler plays on Batman's ego. Batman calls himself, or people say he's the world's greatest detective, and someone goes out of his way to go, can you solve my plans? All right. And Batman has to do it because he's fucking Batman. And to me, that's cool. Having someone know they're egotistical to push their button to have them play your game, that's always fun.
I do the Flobo every day.
Yes, you do that.
Yeah, I do every day. Frank, what do you think is the most underrated DC superhero?
To kind of play off what Flobo said for 1 second is I've always got the soft spot for the Wrath for a Batman villain. He only showed up in a couple comics, but he's basically it's the opposite number of Bruce Wayne's, his origin opposite, where his parents were crooks. They got killed by cops, and so. The same night that Bruce Wayne's parents get killed by Joe Chill, and he just kind of devotes himself to helping the underworld and destroying law enforcement. And he's, I just, as a kid reading that with the Michael Golden art, man,
yeah,
such a great idea, but never really much done with him. So,
don't forget Starman, Jack Knight. But continue.
Yes, he was in Legends of Tomorrow, but I never felt like. This character's never really been done justice in a long time. Is Firestorm?
Yeah.
Man, I love Firestorm. Just the concept. Ronnie Raymond, high school student, kind of match up with Professor Stein. They merge their bodies. Ronnie's the physical body. Martin Stein is the brains. This is basically like his conscience for Ronnie. Just a great power set, and just not much as. He was great in the 80s and the early 90s, and then he just kind of fell off at DC. And so it was cool that he was going to be seen in Flash and then Legends of Tomorrow, but also at a TV budget, they ended up spending more time separated than they ever did together.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, you're never really going to see Firestorm be Firestorm. Essentially, he just ends up being just like, oh, I'm just a fire character. It's like, no, he's so much more than that.
Right. He's like nuclear, bro.
Yes, he controlled the molecules and stuff and rearrange matter.
Yeah,
it was so cool. But,
fire. He's fire. Don't worry.
Yeah, for him, and my second one would be Blue Devil.
Okay.
Man, Dan. I mean, the idea of like Dan Cassidy, a stuntman, basically in a movie called Blue Devil, where he's wearing a Blue Devil outfit.
Yeah,
and then he ends up getting magically stuck in this suit of armor, and he can't get out of it. I'll be honest with you. I only came across him when he was teamed with Black Lightning in the reboot. Mr. Terrific is another one I will go to bat for. Michael Hope, the world's third smartest man, aptitude for having aptitudes. Any of those Justice Society characters, whether it's Mr. Terrific, Our Man, the Alan Scott version of Green Lantern, the Jake Garrick version of Flash.
Yeah.
I love those characters so much.
I'm not an actor, but there's 2 spec scripts I wrote about being Mr. Terrific, and I was like, maybe if someone gave me the job, I'll do it.
Wait, when are you gonna do your reading? You got to do your,
I have no skills. I'm sorry. I just wishful thinking. Start a hashtag. What was terrific?
And that's sort of converse of that. Who's the most underrated villain, DC villain?
Besides Riddler?
Besides Riddler. But is Riddler underrated, though? I think he's well known, right? I mean, even I know who he is.
No one ever says he's their favorite. I think Joker gets a lot of love in Gotham City. Maybe even Ra's al Ghul, when it comes to Batman's villains. Yeah, Liam Neeson.
But who's the most underrated villain? They don't get enough due. They're a good villain. They don't get enough. Nobody talks about them. Or is there one?
There's a lot of villains that are not really remembered. A lot of Superman's villains are kind of like forgotten about, like Mr. Sputnik and Livewire and
Yeah, I mean, I would have put like the Wrath as my kind of underrated villain because I think it's a really cool, fun concept. I mean, somebody else that's kind of like a more modern, not necessarily modern version of the Wrath, but Prometheus, who's kind of floating around here, who basically just is sort of like he's kind of basically copied all the moves of superheroes, and he wears this helmet where he just kind of gets it all injected into his head, sort of like Taskmaster with his photographic reflexes.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, he takes on the Justice League and just kind of outwits him. He's basically sort of like Batman, but with a real tactical edge against the superheroes. That was a very cool idea introduced by Grant Morrison and his run of Justice League that, other writers have not been able to really kind of capture and kind of do more stuff with it. So he kind of just becomes more of a punchline now than I think he had a lot of potential in Grant's run.
Like a Dr. Light. I'm not sure it was underrated anymore, but I guess Black Adam was mine as a kid because Black Adam was cool and it was a former champion that got basically replaced. He got downsized. So having him show up and having the powers of Captain Marvel was always cool. But The Rock being Black Adam, I can't call him underrated for too long.
That's true. I will say I do like that. At least that was a nice thing about Jeff Johns' run on Justice Society is that it really. I mean, before that, I always thought it was Black Adam, but she's like, he's just a bad guy. That's it.
Yeah.
But I thought he did a good job of kind of making him a more kind of well-rounded character.
Okay.
So you could understand why Black Adam did some of the things that he did. You may not agree with it, but at least you understood where he was coming from.
Why is Jeff Johns God tier on paper, but off on the movies? What's up with that?
He's not always God tier on the paper either, but he's done some like Infinite Crisis with with Superman of the original Golden Age Superman getting beat to death by Superboy of Earth Prime. For me, it was just that's how you're going to say goodbye to that character? Thumbs down, Jeff Johns.
Wants a funeral.
Wait up.
Writers. I impressed Frank one day after THU for it. So I mentioned his name. Somebody I had a crush on for years that I met years ago through a friend of mine who just passed away a few months ago. Phil Jimenez.
Oh yeah.
So make sure I mention that. He did Wonder Woman back in the day and a few other things. So I do know a little bit.
When I was in film school, my film professor was Tom Mankiewicz, the writer, who worked with Dick Donner in Superman 78. But the TA was Kyle Higgins, and he was doing at the time the short film called The League. And I remember watching a draft or a cut of it, being like, it's okay. And then 5 years later, he's like doing Night Runner and all these other things in DC. Like, damn it, should have butted him up later. I messed that up bad.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, I don't know anybody. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, if you like, Phil Jimenez does have a new Wonder Woman book that just came out last month. So
nothing will beat the Cliff Chang, Brian Azzarello run. That to me was like, the reboot one with that art is just so great, man. He's
a great artist. He's doing a Catwoman book right now. That's supposed to be really good.
Say less, man. I will check it
out. So last question of always, this has been fascinating. I love this. And if you guys agree to this on camera, because I'm shady this way, would you come back and do a Marvel version of this?
I will do it if Frank says yes.
Oh, well, sorry guys. I can't stand Marvel.
Well, there you go.
Can't do it. Can't possibly be convinced to come here.
He said it. He said it.
And do it. No way. There's no way. There's no way. Oh, Lord. Absolutely, for sure.
My first question is a preview of one of my first questions. Why are there so many different versions of Fantastic Four in the movies? That's my first question. But I'm not answering that right now. But that's about my first. Why are there different iterations of it in the movies? I understand. It seems like it never works. But anyway, so that's like a preview of the first question.
What are cosmic waves? What are cosmic waves?
I'm up there right now. But that'll be one of the questions. But I'm very. You heard it here on camera. He's going to do
yes.
It. Okay.
And I've got a lot to say about that answer. So
I hope so. Okay,
but it's Miles Teller.
Miles Teller. Okay. The last question of the questions is if someone said Frank or someone said Flobo, for a second, we're gonna have you choose whatever character in DC universe to have a show on CW or Netflix or whatever, who would you each pick? It's your dream. You do. They come to you and say, Frank, I know you're over here, but if you had a chance to pick somebody over here, then what would you pick? And Flo was the same thing. If you had a chance to bring it back, I want them to have a show. You're greenlighting the show on JLJ Media.
So the budget's $1 billion an episode.
Exactly.
It's an unfair answer. We'll have two answers. The unfair answer for me is Green Lantern Corps, because that's been in talks for years, but I have not seen a proof of concept. I have not seen any proof of life. I don't know if it's happening or not whatsoever. But like I just mentioned before, Mr. Terrific, I really feel that. And having someone who's just so cynically smart and just finding his way through dealing with his own lack of spirituality in this world where everyone has their own conspiracy theories, dealing with the occult and the scientific and the celestial at the same time. I think that'd be a kind of cool, like Space Rangers, like Buck Rogers kind of thing for new generation. So that's the one. And T-spheres, man. I mean, throwing balls at people. Say less.
In the chat rooms, B-Patch says Vixen is her pick.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, okay, yeah. Because the CW had like a little of the shorts. They didn't really have a full series, so yeah.
Frank, I'm curious, what is your answer?
Oh man, there are so many. So many. I mean, much like Flobo, while it's the Green Lantern Corps, I have such a soft spot for the Legion of Superheroes.
Oh,
so, yeah, sure. Yes, I mean specifically like the Paul Levitz version.
Okay.
So that's like the 80s and 90s kind of Legion of Superheroes. If I could see that brought to the screen, I mean, I would. God, I would love it. But what are the realistic chances that it would actually be good? Just given TV budgets, who knows? Brian Michael Bendis, who wrote this latest iteration of Legion of Superheroes, supposedly has a deal with HBO Max to do an animated series. Based on his version, I'm not that jazzed. Nah, but I mean, if you want to read Flo, have you read any of the Legion of Superheroes?
Not recently. I just saw the animated versions with Saturn Girl and those.
That animated series isn't bad. I feel like the second season for me was better than the first.
Okay.
But if you get a chance to read, either if you want to read an awesome story, the Great Darkness Saga from the Legion of Superheroes, phenomenal story. And if you love that, then you'll love the Legion. So. But if I had to only do one hero, there's something about me that just playing with the conceit of a television show. What about Our Man? Because the idea of Rex Tyler, who does he takes a pill that gives him 1 hour of power.
Yeah.
The idea that you could play around that hour within the structure of a 1 hour TV show.
Yeah. Could
be interesting. So I don't know, just the fun that you might be able to have with that premise could be cool.
Sorry, Stargirl. I'm doing a spinoff. What about a question, man? I thought for sure the question.
Oh, the question. I mean, that's
to me is TV, man.
That's true. I mean, that lo-fi. There's not much to it. You could yeah. It's been a while since I read the Denny O'Neil run. I remember liking it as a kid, but even then, I was just like, some of this is still over my head. A little too zen. Denny O'Neil kind of channeling a lot of that Zen philosophies in there. Even I was like, okay, I don't understand. It looks cool.
Everything's lying.
Well, it's funny. So Candace says, why not Deathstroke the series?
He's overplayed. No, that's a good idea. I think Deathstroke is a fantastic choice, but I do think that's one I don't say hero, but one thing, one property that gets pulled too many different directions. Whereas Batman isn't appearing in enough things. I feel like Deathstroke's in everything. He's hanging out.
Yeah.
So there you go, Candace. Okay, so the last big thing, you guys are great. And the last big thing is I just wonder. So you guys have you've been watching and reading since you were kids, correct? Both of you, since you were kids.
Off and on.
Okay, so and Frank, you're like 200, right? So you're like 200.
Woo!
Almost like 30-some years old.
I'm working on it.
So I was wondering. I mean, like all this we talked about. Someone goes, "Wow, I want to read that version instead of this and that version of that." And there's 10 Earths and 5 Gothams and. Can somebody really start now and or is it just too late? Is it just just pick a series, pick a thing, and start reading? I mean, like, how do anybody do this now? They start going, this sounds exciting, but what do you do? You pick a superhero and follow all their shit, or how do you do that? Do you think?
I don't know. And I don't know how you feel about a Flobo. It's like for me as a kid when I started reading comics, I liked what I read and the world that it showed me. And then I was excited to go and try to find back issues while I was also buying new issues as they would come out. But I was like, oh, this excites me. I want to find out. I want to learn more about the history. They always have like those little editor notes at the bottom of some panels, like this happened in Fantastic Four 131. And you're like,
Right.
ooh, all right, I want to go find that issue and find out about it. For me, I get sucked into learning about the history of it. Yeah. I don't know if people still feel the same way about that today. I mean, certainly there's 25, 6, 7, 8 years of comics between me as a kid reading them to now. So certainly the what you have to go research is a lot bigger, but I don't know if kids still have that same feeling, or adults, or whoever, whatever age you are, still get that. I just want them to have that excitement of reading something and then being excited to learn more about that world.
I think that's how you start organically, right? And the whole time period where there was more comic book shops, and your parents were like, "Yeah, have fun." You'll go and see a comic book you like, or whatever is on sale, and pick something you like and bring around that. Because artists and creative teams change every couple issues. There's always a big event that reboots things. Like for me, there was a thing about 10 years ago, when DC Comics basically threw out all continuity and brought it back, called the New 52. And a lot of older fans, or I'll say older, OG fans, didn't like it. I did, because some superheroes that I told you had written off, like Superman, for example, came back with a whole different backstory, which says, I'm going to go and check this out again. I would say as an adult, and that was the first time I got into comic books like full bore, it was Green Lantern Rebirth #1, the first variant, where you had the picture of the Spectre with the lantern. And I go, hey, isn't that guy that was all happy a couple years ago? What happened? And that put me back to the Final Night, and before that, Emerald Twilight, and Cosmic Odyssey, and all those other, Mosaic, all those other stories of that mythos. I became Green Lantern.
My friend, he wrote it.
Which one?
Jeff Thorne.
Oh, okay. That's what's up. So you find the hero you like, and then a lot of times they cross over, or they find someone else like, well, who knows that person? Or like for me, there was a weird like Justice League Canada, whatever it was called, the Jeff Lemire thing. I was like, yep. I'm Captain Canuck. I'm in. You know what I mean? Because Adam Strange was in it. Like it just became like this one character crosses over. But to answer your question, James, if you're watching Spider-Man, for example, and you see a character you like, you go to the store and be like, yo, I want to know more about this guy, or go online, who was that guy? And it's usually an essential list somewhere in Google. You can be like, okay.
I own 2 comic books, only 2. Well, I don't count the graphic. I have the whole Walking Dead continuum. I have the big book. I have the big one. I have a Buffy season 9 that came out, and it was only in the graphic novel. I have that. But my brother wrote a comic book, so I have his. And then I have a Darth Vader comic from Marvel.
You don't have my comic? I wrote 2 of them, James. What the?
You didn't give it to me.
Oh, I have to give it to you. You don't want to buy these? Okay. All right. Wow. I'll see what I can do.
And I want them signed too. Shit.
Okay.
You didn't get Shia LaBeouf's comic, James?
The comic book?
You did. You didn't get that?
I didn't know you had like
Even Stevens.
That's totally fine. I didn't know that. Anyway, but folks, and I do remember you do have comic books, but you do. That's right. That's part of your books and thing. So anyway, I didn't buy it.
No, I get you one. It's all good.
I support you another way. Okay, so everybody, thank you for doing this. This is so much fun. I love it. We're going to do a Marvel one. So folks, we'll tell you what's coming out. We're going to discuss after the show here after we get off mic, and what's all. We're going to do it again. But this was great. I learned a lot actually, and I have questions to ask my brother. I know how to buy comics. I've never bought a comic book in my entire life, so I got to learn how to really do that. I'm sure he'll show me. So I'm very excited. I got some stuff. Maybe I will one day get to be able to write the Wonder Twins. I'm going to work it out somehow. I can go back to the beginning of the show. I'm going to have a Wonder Twins show. I'm going to do it at some point. DC, you're going to come hire me. We're going to do it. And I'll make it where it's crazy like Dynasty. Okay, so Frank Moran, where can I find you?
Find me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie, everybody. And James, even if you don't buy a comic book, physical, you can. I mean, the world of digital is your friend.
I have to have a show. I don't even know. I have to have a show me. He does both.
Oh, see, that's what you get yourself like a DC, DC Universe, Marvel Unlimited, and it basically just like a vast library of over 10,000 books on each of all sorts of stuff that you could go through from all sorts of stuff at different times.
And I thought the Star Wars universe was crazy. And Flobo Boyce.
Wait, who is Jackie? I wasn't meant to ask you that. Who?
Happy Go Jackie.
Who's Jackie?
Who's Jackie?
Hey.
None of your business.
Bada boom. Hey, none of your business. Flobo Boyce, you can follow me on Twitter at Flobo Boyce, on Twitter, on Instagram at Flobito. And I wrote comic books, but it's fine. You can find Legacy available on Amazon. Type it in Legacy. And Silver Streak, that's STREEK, my superhero book, is available on Comixology.
I don't write comic books, but I do have new superheroes. I have Rapid Rita and the Speedster out now. Episode 1 came out last Tuesday, and every Tuesday coming up, it's my two bumbling idiots, and Frank is in the series as Mayor Perkins. He's so good at it. So it's out now on all audio streaming platforms. And right now we are recording a pre-production for Jet Boy, which actually is, I'll have it over here, I have it over there, which is actually a continuation of Airboy. If you remember Airboy comics, back in the 40s and the 80s. I'm writing a kind of like a sequel of sorts. It's public domain. I can do that. And I created the characters from the second Airboy, and I created Grandson. So recording that the last couple of Sundays, and it's coming out really well. We're very excited. That'll be out soon. So I'm dipping my toe into the superhero space on JLJ Media. I am working on that.
I read that 80 series, man. That's cool.
Oh, I'm reading it right now. It's crazy. It's very meta, very crazy, very kind of stuff going on. I'm reading it right now. So yes, but I like Airboy. I like the premise, the Valkyrie, and all that. So I'm doing that right now. So that's coming out soon, hopefully on JLJ Media. We're recording that right now. You can find me where all James Lott Jr. is sold, of course, at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms, including on TikTok. I actually did another TikTok today about the Mandela Effect. You don't know what that is? Look it up. It's when you think something you think is true, it's not true, and it involves this jar of peanut butter. So go ahead and watch that on TikTok at James Lott Jr. That's it, kids. We'll see you next time when it comes to I don't normally watch that.